Tommy Robinson has been released. His real name is Stephen Yaxley-Lennon, and I'm sure there'll be people in the comments section who will be only too happy to point that out, that his name is not actually Tommy Robinson. But, people associated with him, I think, have great difficulty getting jobs and moving forward because of the way our systems are so interlinked today. So maybe he's doing people a favour by assuming a nom de guerre, a sobriquet, and that's the one I intend to use, by the way. I don't intend to start calling Cliff Richard by his original name. And, Gary Glitter is how I would refer to Gary Glitter. And Tommy Robinson was recently arrested in Canada for suspected immigration offences. The arrest occurred shortly after he spoke at an event in Calgary, organised by the far-right outlet Rebel News. And he was detained, apparently because of an immigration warrant that was outstanding, which led to him being handcuffed in public and filmed and taken into custody by a plainclothes police officer, by a couple of plainclothes police officers, but also by this bevy of uniformed officers. So many people to arrest one person who was undoubtedly going to go quietly because of the amount of camera activity focused on him. This is, once again, a waste of police resources. And there's no question about the bad boy image of Tommy Robinson and the harm that he has done to people like Lizzie Dearden, to the 15-year-old refugee boy in Huddersfield whom he maligned. He's served, I think, 4 prison sentences altogether, and being caught up in no end of contempt of court charges and restrictions. And I think at one point he applied for political asylum in the United States. But enough is enough. He's done the crime, he's served the time, and I think the resources can be better managed than by being the fanboys of the Tommy Robinson Brigade, whether that's in the UK or elsewhere. And following his arrest, Robinson was ordered to remain in Calgary, surrender his passport, which incidentally looked to me to be purpley red rather than blue-black, and I believe he travels under an Irish passport, which is extraordinary for somebody who was so vehemently in favour of Brexit. To surrender his passport, he was prohibited from continuing his speaking tours across Canada, and the restriction prevented him travelling to other cities for the planned podcast appearances and engagements, so severely compromising the activities of Rebel News. He is a controversial figure, there is no question about this, and his history has been marked by multiple arrests and legal issues, but certainly the people I've spoken to who know him, and the most recent interviews that I've seen, this doesn't seem to be a man who is a great threat to society. Yes, he speaks ill of Islam and continues to do so, and I wish he didn't. But in the UK, he's been a prominent figure for far-right activism, particularly through his involvement with BNP and then with the English Defence League, the EDL, which he co-founded. His legal troubles as such began in 2012 with a conviction for oddly using a friend's passport to travel to the United States. This led to a 10-month prison sentence. But more recently, he's been involved in legal disputes over contempt of court rulings, especially those related to his inflammatory remarks about Islam, about grooming gangs, and the tone which is widely understood and condemned as hate speech. But the more he is pursued, the more he is arrested in cafes by a bevy of police in an absurd display of force for a man who is essentially a pussycat. He looks like a victim rather than a criminal. And and equally, when there are so many things to do, this is such a waste of police and court resources. When courts are backed up, the backlog of court cases which simply are not getting through, when the courts are constipated, Tommy Robinson is not an alternative to Laxido. It's Tommy Robinson is a distraction, and the courts need something to ease their progress, not to further block themselves. His public arrest last week and the conditions of his release in Canada are still sparking interest and media attention and debate, particularly concerning the issues of freedom of speech and the enforcement of immigration laws. But mostly, these are the things that keep him in the news. These are the things that keep him buoyed up and present. And this is not the way to make the issues that Tommy Robinson harps on about go away. This is not the way. And I don't really understand, except that that somewhere in the bowels of Whitehall, someone has decreed that Tommy Robinson will be the bogeyman of Britain.